deal. We are so thrilled to have every one of you here at the closing celebration of Circle City Week New York 2022. Thank you for being here. And can I just say, what a week. I mean, I tried to put together a few pictures, and those are only a few snapshots of the 110 in-person and online events.
Wow.
With more than 1,200 contributing organizations and speakers engaged in dynamic conversations around circular economy, showcasing solutions to really drive forward the agenda. And what you can see here, we had field trips to recycling facilities, even went down to New Jersey to use TerraCycle. We have battery power presented. There were workshops where people working hands-on on how to recreate consumer goods in a textile. Plenty of online conversation. We even had His Royal Highness Crown Prince Berg from Denmark speaking at one of the events. It has been a success. And on this note, I really want to thank all the event hosts that are bringing the content to the Circle City Week and really doing amazing work. Thank you all for creating fantastic events throughout the week. And this is what makes the Circle City Week so unique. We are coming together having those important conversations, and we're here to learn. And that knowledge we can bring to the table and create new values in the big corporates, in the small business around the corner, even educate in the universities where we are teaching the future generation. And also the public sector who can shape the circular agenda. And not to mention the not-for-profit that are really advocating a better future for all. And at last, very important, every individual that really has an impact to create a better future by behavioral decisions that are ultimately the deciding factor. Circular City Week is a movement, moving towards a circular economy. This would not be possible without our partners. Therefore, I would like to thank all our publicity partners and platform partners, our pioneer partners, Enel, Alu, and Iserta, and a special thank to Nordic Innovation, our premium partners. Your support is instrumental for the Circular City Week and its mission. This evening, we have the pleasure to welcome to hear from Nordic corporates committed to circular economy, and we also have the honor of having a fireside chat with the Commissioner of New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs, Mermelstein, together with our Deputy Director, Kinga from the Confederation of Danish Industry, talking about how to realize the full potential of innovation and as a driver for circular economy. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Svein Berg, the Managing Director of Nordic Innovation, as our keynote speaker for tonight.
Thank you, Imke, for your kind words. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, friends of circular economy. First of all, I would like to thank the Confederation for Danish Industry, State of Green, and Danish Clean Tech Hub for taking such an important initiative to host the Circular City Week here in New York. I'm most impressed by the energy that the organizing team has put into making this an open, collaborative festival for circular economy. Inspiring topics, 350 speakers, more than 10,000 participants registered. It simply shows the importance of and the need for the circular economy week. I have to be honest with you, I had prepared a speech for tonight. 1 hour ago, I decided to put it away. Instead, I will give you an intervention which I learned, which is shorter and more pinpointed. Many years ago, I had an experienced colleague. He said, when you make an intervention, always make 3 points. If you make 1 or 2, the audience will think you don't have the perspective, you don't have a holistic view of things, you are too myopic. If you make 4, 5, or 6 points, the audience will think you can't prioritize, you can't separate the vital few from the many interesting. So you are an interesting group. Guess how many points I'm going to make. My first take is going to be that the understanding of the situation now goes beyond the congregation, which many of us are a part of. Imke said that we are a movement. Well, I think we have gone beyond being a movement. I think the understanding of the need for transition into a circular economy now is broader embedded in the whole societies. From a movement to a broad embedded understanding of the need for the transition we need to go through. My second take is that the broad understanding that each company and organization is that each organization and company is part of a broader ecosystem and value chain. I think the necessary changes can only be achieved with a broad cooperation on many levels. This is what makes it a so big problem. Nevertheless, none will be able to be successful alone. If we are to achieve the transition to a circular economy, we need to cooperate on many levels. It's so simple to say, but it's so hard to achieve this. But that is a fundamental understanding. If you stand alone, or you stand still, you need to cooperate to be able to bring the need for transition further up. My third take is that this has been a really inspiring week. And the reason for this is that we have heard so many stories, so many cases, how it can be done. Practical, showing the way, good for business and good for societies. This made me believe that it is possible. The light that you have seen in the tunnel is not light from the train coming the other way. It's the light of the exit point. But it underlines this, at the same time, the need for personal leadership to achieve a successful transition. Nothing comes out of a vacuum. Companies, countries, organizations never cooperate. In the end, it's only people that cooperate. And that is why this week is so important. It brings people together. And by bringing people together, we are able to achieve results. I will end now, but I will end like, have you seen the film Terminator? I will be back.
Kinga and Edward, can I please ask you to come up here to the stage, and I'm going to give the word to our Deputy Director, Kinga Szabo Christensen.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi everyone. everybody. Good evening. How are you doing? It's such a pleasure to be here. I got here, I flew in from Denmark just last night, and I brought the weather with me. Yes, it's such a pleasure to be here in person. I have been following our Circular City Week adventures in, I think it's a bit of echo. Maybe I will just whisper. I've been following the Circular City Week adventure for 4 years now, and it's the first time I'm here in person because there has been COVID, so it's been always been online. So it's extra special for me to attend here in person, and thanks all for coming. It's been so inspiring to follow the events of this week, to see the stories, to see the journeys, as you said, the practical examples of circular economy all this week. And some of you may know, some of you may not know that organizing parties behind Circular City Week in New York is actually the Confederation of Danish Industry. How random is that? But we actually represent in Denmark over 18,000 Danish companies. Many of them really are adopting the circular way of innovating, the circular way of living, and the circular production of interesting products and services. So we are there also very much internationally, and that's why it makes sense to be here this week and connect with all kinds of people here in New York. But the guest of honor is not me, it's you, Edward. Welcome here tonight. I'm so honored to have a conversation today with you, the commissioner, Edward, and I asked how to pronounce it, Mermelstein, right? And Edward, you are from the New York City Mayor's Office, Commissioner for International Affairs. Welcome to Edward. So, can we start a little bit more generally? And I would like to ask you, can you share with us what the Adams administration's vision is for sustainability in New York City?
So, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the honor of being part of Circular City and allowing me to speak on behalf of our administration. And I'd also like to thank my office, who has made this all happen, because without my office, nothing happens.
That's honest.
Well, given that I'm in this office only 4 months, I do have quite a bit to learn, and it's amazing to see how much I've learned in this new administration. Again, a lot of it has to do with the fact that this office has been so involved in sustainability and the green economy, along with the United Nations.
Speak up a little bit, I think, because they can't hear you.
Let's see if we can fix this. Forgive me. So, in terms of our administration, I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's all about seeing all of New Yorkers thrive. That's really the focus of Mayor Adams and everyone that has joined this administration. We're very much dedicated in reversing the impact of climate change. And it's amazing. Again, I've been doing this only for a couple of months. I come from the private sector, and for me this is very, very new, especially when you're coming from very small business type of private sector. So the fact that I've been able to learn so much about what Circular City has been doing for these years, and in fact what New York City has been doing for not just several past years, but also in the last several months. It's, oh, there we go. So in terms of just green economy initiatives, New York is really the leader today in energy, transport, logistics, building, circular economy, food, heavy industry, and resiliency. And if you hear not just our mayor, but the administration speak about all of these issues, it's all framed in a conversation that has to do with sustainability and climate change. So speaking of New York, the state leads the nation in climate legislation. We are the leader for the United States. In terms of numbers, and I have lots of numbers with me, we have 850,000 green economy workers in New York, which I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of those numbers, but for me that was just
maybe some of them are here.
Very, very impressive to hear. New York State is investing in the green economy heavily, and again, some numbers. 500 million in offshore wind. And you'll be hearing and reading about this more and more with every day, every week. Wind power is going to be generating a substantial amount of electricity in New York State. So we're very excited about that, but not just the fact that it's going to be generating electricity, but all the jobs that are being created as a result of this new industry that's coming into New York. As far as New York City is concerned, New York is spending about $4 billion in retrofitting many of the buildings that we have in New York City. And it's a huge, huge undertaking, and anyone who's in the real estate world will understand what that means. There's going to be a tremendous amount of money spent in the private sector. So while New York City is spending $4 billion, the private sector is spending about $30 billion to retrofit the buildings in New York. Much of this is happening with the help of organizations that are part of the city, such as NYC, EDC, which is the Economic Development Corporation. This is the organization that has brought these major corporations that generate wind power. And then we have organizations like SBS, which is the Small Business Services. And while they cater to the smaller businesses, what they are doing is also educating these businesses and providing them the ability to do what these major businesses are doing in terms of economy. So.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, but also there is an international dimension here, right? And I mean, we both know the power of international collaboration, I guess. That's why we are here from so many different countries. And especially when it comes to sustainability and circularity, nobody can do it alone. So can you explain maybe a little bit about the role of the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs and how your role translates into both collaboration and innovation?
So our office is what I like to call the bridge between the political international community and New York City agencies, as well as the international community in general that are, in a sense, overseen by our, whether it's the consulates or the embassies that represent them while they're living here. So our office works with many international offices, whether they're corporate offices or their representatives in New York, representatives meaning the consul generals or the economic arms of these governments that are represented here in New York City. And we are a very political city, and not just political from the point that
is it a good thing?
There's lots of politics going on in New York, but the fact that we do have over 113 consulates in New York, as well as about 190 missions. So we have this wonderful international presence that allows New York to get the best of what is going on across the globe. So best practices is very much what we're focused on, and we get the benefit of working with governments from all over the world, seeing what they do better than us, and vice versa, what we do better than them, and we collaborate and exchange ideas and all these new innovations that are taking place all over the world.
That's very cool, and that was actually my next question about innovation, because New York City is like a global hub, as you started out saying, for finance, for food, for fashion, what have you, where innovative solutions really come to life. Some may say it's the capital of the world. I don't know, who agrees? New York City, capital of the world?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. But what do you think New York has to offer when it comes to innovation and forward-thinking solutions?
So, as a city of almost 9 million people, and all the support that we have for those 9 million people, so aside again from organizations like the EDC that support major corporations, small business services make sure that all of our small businesses are able to do their job in a very efficient way. So part of what the new administration is doing is consolidating many of the services that are spread out across the city agencies under one electronic umbrella. So you're able to go into a portal very soon, and you're able to access all kinds of city services under one website rather than going to multiple different agencies.
Okay. And I can see a sign here, a very solid sign, time is up. So I just really wanted to thank you for sharing your thoughts. Even if you are new in this position, I think you've done well. Thanks to the office for preparing, but it was really a pleasure to both meet you and hear about your visions and ambitions. I think many countries, including ours in Denmark, is looking at New York and to New York, because the open-mindedness and especially your focus on collaboration is really the way forward. So thanks so much. Let's give up.
And with me on this panel, I have the huge honor to have Louise Smith from Lego as a senior environmental policy lead. We already met Svein, Berg, from Nordic Innovation Managing Director. I have Nicole Robertson, VP for Environment, Social Government, and Nokia. And Abigail Kammerzell, Head of Sustainability at H&M North America. Thank you all for being here. Tonight, the focus is innovation. We all know that this is such a key element. It doesn't matter, we have very different industry represented in this panel, but it doesn't matter. Innovation is across all levels. Do you agree to this? Absolutely. So I have a question just to kick off for all of you. Where do you see the highest potential in each of your areas where you're coming from? You look like you're gonna start.
I can start. Thank you. Yeah, hi, I'm Louise from the Lego Group. I think probably there's not one single area for innovation. There's probably going to be a series of innovations that are going to lead to a more circular economy. But certainly at the Lego Group, we see a lot of potential, of course, in materials. And we've been working with new materials and improving existing materials. So there's already bioplastics in our portfolio. We've been experimenting with recycling of plastics. But I think a key thing for us also is keeping the existing blocks in play, because I'm sure a lot of you have got your childhood bricks and you still own them, you don't throw them away, you give them to your children or you give them to your nieces and nephews. And that's a real potential as well. So how do we use that to create a more circular economy? That's another huge area for us. And a final thing that I think is unique to the Lego Group is we've got a bit of a position to work with children on their understanding of the circular economy, so that we can help to develop those innovators of the future in circular economy.
I'm going to follow up where I left the floor last. I would like to differentiate between innovation and disruptive innovation. And I strongly believe that if we are to make huge changes, we need to be able to make disruptive innovations. and disruptive innovations you can only do by having an ecosystem that works, and you can tap into that ecosystem and you can work with the best of people around you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think for me, when I think about innovation, I think what we've talked about already tonight, which is around collaboration and the need to bring together even unpredictable partners outside of our ecosystems together to really drive the circular economy forward. If I use a concrete example from my own company, from Nokia, we've just launched a new solution around liquid-cooled baseband solutions, which probably means nothing to anyone outside of our industry. But the reason we're really excited about it is what it does ultimately is reduce the energy requirements of a base station that we use to connect our mobile phones and everything else to networks, ultimately enabling us to reduce emissions from those base stations by up to 80%. And that's kind of exciting, and there's lots of other benefits as well. But where it's really exciting from a circularity perspective is that we can take that waste heat that the base stations create when they're in operation, and we can reuse it and repurpose it for something else. So for example, partnering with Elisa, we installed or deployed a commercial liquid-cooled base station in an apartment building in Helsinki, and used that heat from the base station as a contributor to heat the building, to heat the apartment building. And I think that's a great example of how, if we don't collaborate outside of our normal innovation stream, and if we don't think about things outside our own use cases and our own products, we really miss an opportunity for the circular economy to do something a little bit different. So we really need things like this. I think this is an excellent event to bring different industries together, to think where those inflection points occur.
They gave the American her own mic. But I think when you're thinking about innovation, when you're thinking about what's exciting, I have to agree with all my fellow panelists. It's really, thinking about new ways, especially when you mention disruption, and it's not just disruption in how we look at production, it's not just disruption in materials, it's really looking at the entire industry. I'm with H&M, we're looking at the fashion industry, and it's really looking at changing how we approach our clothing, and really looking at those new business models. So making sure not only is the production process fully circular, but also how are we enabling our customers and our consumers and our communities to experience fashion in a new and interesting way. And I think, to add on to everything that was said, it is about that within the industry collaboration, but also that cross-industry collaboration. That is extremely important. You have to take the technology from where it's coming from and see how you can work together to integrate it. We have the Global Change Awards, which is our early stage innovators program, and these are scientists who are coming up with fantastic ways of changing the fashion industry to be fully circular and sustainable. So it's very exciting, but it's a little of everything. There's not just one way, it's all the ways together.
Absolutely. And I just want to add on that, Abigail, because you are already pretty far in your circular journey compared to many other companies, especially in the textile industry. Congratulations to that. And talking about the innovation is where do you see barriers in enabling innovation, and how can we remove some of the barriers?
I don't like to say barriers, but opportunities for creativity and thinking. But really it is, ultimately it's coming down to how are we making it easier for clothing to stay in the system and to extend its life? How are we making that easier than throwing it away? That's ultimately at the baseline, right? And so when you're approaching that, it's really thinking about, when you say barriers, it's really about scale. That's really what it is. Those are the barriers. The technology is, new technology is coming out every single day, but it's how are we working together as an industry, as cross industries, to make sure that we're enabling the ability to scale this technology and really use it to change the entire industry. H&M is a large company, but when you compare it to the entire fashion industry, when you compare it to all consumer goods, it's really going to take all of us and communicating, I think you mentioned that, communicating to our customers, how can they be involved in this story as well? So there's a lot we can do, a lot that still needs to be done, but it's one of those things that's sustainability. You're learning new things every single day.
Exactly. It's everywhere, and in every single little piece in the across the business. I agree. And I think that, Nicole, we had a really good conversation leading up to this meeting, and can you share a little bit about your approach that you have to circularity at Nokia and how you really intend to exactly implement circular practices across all levels of your business?
Yeah, sure, and I think it starts with strategy, right? And I think that the tech industry is in an interesting space where we're seeing this explosion in connectivity and digitalization, and the question is, how do we manage that explosion in a sustainable way? And for us, that means how do we decouple an increase in capacity and usage from a usage of energy and materials? And it's a real challenge, right? And so that requires innovation, but it also requires a proper strategy that isn't a function or an initiative, but is actually embedded in the organization from top to bottom, from our corporate strategy, our technology strategy, and ultimately every single employee understanding what it takes in their own roles to drive a greater circular economy within our own operations and our products. And so we try and take a really holistic approach, in part with our products. I think, like many of us, looking at how we can increase product life cycle, for example, through software upgradability and other stuff, as well as actually how we remove the need to create materials in the first place through new approaches like network slicing, for example. But then when we do have waste, I think we have a fairly traditional waste hierarchy in terms of how we manage that. And we, in 2021, were able to divert 97% of the materials from our product take-back service away from landfill by using refurbishment with partners like Orange, for example, using refurbished products, as well as through recycling and energy capture, for example. So I think it has to be a holistic approach if we want to really make serious impact.
Absolutely. And also some of the conversation that I had the chance to get involved in throughout the week, what comes up in that connection as well is not just like what the company in itself can do, that is one big part, but also like on the governmental level, policies. I'm looking now over to you, Lisa, because you're working with environmental policy. I'm sure also you're working with regulatory measurements. Could you share from your perspective the role of maybe what is needed or what the landscape looks like within circular economy?
Yes, absolutely. I think policymakers have a huge role to play in enabling this circular economy, and I think we're already seeing some really interesting things. Of course, there's the Circular Economy Action Plan that's coming out in the EU, which is driving things like eco-design principles, so that you can say, well, how do we design products for durability, for longevity, and how do we think about repairability? And these are really important things that policymakers can do, and I think that's going to be incredibly valuable. At the same time, I think it has to be a multi-stakeholder process, because there can be unintended consequences if many, many countries set a different definition of a circular economy, and then a business like ours is trying to work all around the world. That's going to be a challenge. So I think we as businesses can inform that policy, as can NGOs, as can all the stakeholders, to make sure that that policy environment really enables circular economy as opposed to restrict it or restrict innovation.
Thank you. And then I know also, Svein, you, I was wondering when it comes to especially enabling innovation and also working with policy, and in the US, now I'm going a little bit over to like the Nordic perspective versus the US, because I think that is so interesting, because there are differences in like how to work with circular economy and how to really implement circular practices. And in the US, it's very much from the private sector driven the economic. Svein, can you share with us like what the role of large corporates play in the circular transition in the Nordic countries?
I think it's a difference between the US and the Nordics in this respect. In the US, the belief in private initiatives and private decisions are much stronger. And the flip side of that argument is that the government's opportunity to impose new regulations are more limited than in the Nordics. And of course, but in the US, the companies in average are bigger, and consequently
unfortunately, the decisions that big and large corporations make in the US will have larger impact. But in the Nordics, it's more transparent, the trust in the government is higher, and we tend to follow the advice that the government gives us. You might think it sounds strange, but let me give you a practical example. I have in my apartment in Oslo 5 or 6 garbage bins. Why do I have it? It's simply because I'm asked or encouraged to do so. We are supposed to put the bottles in one place, metal in another place, food waste in a third place, plastic in the fourth place, and hard paper in the 5th place. And we do it because we will not be punished if we don't. But we are advised to do so because we trust the government, and when they encourage us and ask us to do so, well, we try to our best ability to follow up on this. So I think, how should I say it, that the way we are encouraged can be different. But I see that we can be encouraged different ways, but we need different instruments than in the US compared to the Nordics. You can use more soft instruments in the Nordics and partly achieve the same results. Because we do have a different history. The US is probably the only place on earth, in addition to Singapore, where the ideology came before the people. The first ones who came to the US, they brought with them the ideology. They flew from suppression, and individualism is so strong here. People were in Europe millions of years before ideology came. So we come from different positions, even though we share a lot of values. We look partly alike, but we do have a different.
And
I think I stopped here before.
But thank you for those points, because I think those are some points why we are here also, because we do have different approaches that we all can learn from. Like in the US, you see such a dynamic involvement, you have amazing service, the innovation is growing amazingly, and I think it also opens up for different opportunities. And maybe some of you have some perspective on what kind of initiative are really useful to implement in the US compared to the Nordic countries. What are some of the initiatives that you think can really enable and drive forward the circular economy within your business? For me?
I mean, I spoke of it earlier, but it's really scaling and enabling ease of accessibility. I think, like I said, we want to make it as easy as possible for everyone to take part in the circular economy. And I think, you know, one of the great things about that is that's also job creation, right? When we're doing that. For us, I think, you know, specifically for a fashion company, we're looking at, you know, we are 80% of our materials are sustainably sourced. We're at almost 18% recycled materials throughout our entire line. But it's really about looking at how are we scaling it and enabling it. So one of the things I'm most excited about, and I think could really be interesting for the US to get involved with, is looking at fiber-to-fiber recycling at scale, really looking at how are we integrating our governments into the circular economy, such as garment collecting processes for recycling, such as how are we enabling people to, again, extend the life of their clothing. I, of course, really am excited at the opportunity for us as an organization to work with other organizations and governments to lead them with what we know, being a Swedish company, and really being able to be leaders in putting things in place that will enable others to take part in the circular economy.
And I think, like, since you all representing Nordic companies with the roots in Scandinavia, even though very large companies operating globally. And Svein just mentioned some of those Nordic values that the Nordic countries are very proud of like a flat hierarchy, gender equality, open communication, such as. Are there some of those values that you think are enrooted within Nordic commerce, even though you are operating globally?
At least for Nokia, for sure. I think we feel it really much. I remember when I joined Nokia, I felt like it was an indoctrination process, not because it was a negative experience, but just there was such a strong culture. There was an incredibly strong culture around and incredibly strong values. And I think it comes from Finland, it comes from the Nordics. I think it also comes because the company is more than 150 years old. And so you have this embedded feeling that you're going to be around for the consequences of your decisions. And that we expect to be around for another 150 years, which requires change and an openness to change. It requires adaptability and responsibility and accountability to do the right things in your operations today, because you'll pay for them in one way or another later. And so I think that combination of the Nordic values, which are incredibly strong, was really clear. But also this inherent feeling that we have a legacy and a responsibility to pass on and to make sure that the company's still here later and that we have a positive contribution to society is really strong.
Is that something that you also still Lego? Do you think it has like any benefits or beneficial impacts?
Yes, absolutely. I'm British and we love a bit of hierarchy in Britain. that can strangle innovation, and that can mean that people who are more junior, earlier in their career, don't feel able to bring their ideas. But when we're talking circular economy and we're talking innovation, we need everybody to be able to bring their ideas to the table. And at the Lego Group, it really is that sort of environment where it's very comfortable. You go to our head office and all the LT are walking around, and it's the sort of place that fosters that creativity. And I think that's those values, those Danish values, that help that.
Thank you. I like to say Danish words. I like to have Nordic words. And we're almost out of time, but I would love for you, I would love to hear, to end on a more positive note, and it's already been so positive the entire week and so inspiring to hear the different stories. And can we, what can we expect from the future? And now talking again about the innovative solutions, are there any innovative solutions that yet must be developed? And what is it that you are dreaming of in terms of innovation?
I mean, for me, one of the solutions that we have built and have implemented, but now we're working on scaling, is the circulator. It's our circular design guidelines, because of course we know when you're designing for circularity, you really need to start at the design process. You can't inject circularity at the end. It has to start from the very first step of the process. So we've developed design guidelines for circularity that we've actually had one of our innovation collections designed fully circular. We actually had another innovation collection launched yesterday, made entirely of waste. But with these circular design guidelines, all of our designers are being trained on them, and the exciting part of it is not only will all of our collections eventually be designed for circularity using these guidelines, we're making it open source for the entire industry to use, because we need everyone in the industry to design for circularity in their products. And of course, ultimately, what am I looking for? I mentioned it before, fiber to fiber mixed recycling at scale.
Maybe from my side, I come from a tech company, so maybe no surprise that I believe that connectivity and digitalization and data provides this huge platform for mass innovation in this space. So in general, I think that provides an incredible platform. But maybe surprisingly, I really look for innovation in business models and mindset. I think business models that really drive product lifecycle extension are really, really important. And I think as a mindset shift, it's one thing to talk about how circular we are with the materials that we use, that's really important, but we also need to take a step back and look at how we reduce the amount of materials that we use and only buy what we need, only create what's absolutely needed, and use innovation to reduce that at the starting point. And then of course, once we're in the cycle, then make sure that we apply that in a circular way, which of course, I think connectivity and digitalization have a huge role to play in being able to do that.
I would like to say when I'm leaving the organization I'm working from now that we have made a difference in changing the Nordic towards a more sustainable society.
I think I would love to see some of these unusual partnerships that we've talked about and really, really breaking down those barriers of who's working with who, because we're all in the same systems and perhaps we aren't working in that way yet. But another thing I'd really like to see is let's ask the children, because they're inheriting this world, they are going to be looking after things in the future. So I think for the Lega group and for me, that's incredibly important to start educating those children and bringing them into the conversation.
What a perfect note to wrap up this kind of discussion. Thank you all for so much for being here. Thank you for taking such a lead in this and focusing on circularity. And before we go over to enjoying some drinks and some food and continue conversation that can turn into collaboration, I would love to ask Thamara Ramirez-Walker on the stage. She is the Global Vice President for Sustainability Marketing and Solution at SAP. And on that note, I also want to, from all the team from Circus City Week and Circus, we want to thank SAP for providing us the space for the entire week to really enabling the conversation that we had this week. Thank you so much.
I think I'm probably fine. My voice carries. Thank you for the warm welcome. I heard an incredible quote this week that really resonated with me and feels like a great way to close us out for, as Imke said, is an incredible Circular City Week here at the SAP Purpose and Sustainability Center. Circularity lies between sustainability and innovation. This quote simply states what it will take to achieve a world of zero waste through circular business practices, a laser focus of sustainability and innovation as a driving force behind everything that we do. Leading a fundamental and systemic change to the way cities run and the way businesses operate is only possible with sustainability and innovation at the center. At SAP, we always say and we believe that sustainability is a journey and not a destination. Only together can we accelerate solutions that eliminate waste and enable progress towards a circular economy, supporting sustainable material use, maximizing reuse, and encouraging resource sharing. We are excited to partner with all of you to make our cities circular and the businesses within them thriving, regenerative businesses. Each of us here today make up the heart of the cities where we live and the businesses where we work. A world of zero waste is closely connected to a world of zero emissions and zero inequality. When we imagine the kind of future that we want to create, it's one where climate action, circularity, and social responsibility are at the heart of a global ecosystem. Over the course of this week, we've covered an array of topics, everything from food waste to renewable and reusable office space and furnishings. We recognize the fundamental role of data in amplifying impact, innovation programs with built-in accountability, and corporate partnerships in achieving systemic change. A circular economy requires a mind shift change, from take, make, waste, to resource, recovery, and reuse. Because even in a world of heightened ambitions, the reality is that some sectors are still lagging behind. And for this reason, it's more important than ever for us here to come together as leaders in this space to challenge our peers across every industry and cities to adopt new ways of thinking and to showcase the link between profitability and sustainability. I invite you all to work alongside us in the effort to realize a more sustainable future. And to quote Mayor Adams, don't know if Edward is still here, we are committed to get stuff done, and together we'll make it happen. Thank you everyone here for your